Someone running.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we've got a, okay, that's cool. Just, we're gonna start just a few minutes late. I'll let you know when we actually start. We're just trying to delay enough for a counselor who's stuck in traffic. But we're not gonna wait for her to actually arrive to start. We'll probably start in 5 minutes or so. So I know everyone's settled down. I really appreciate how quiet it got, but you can talk more. I'll let you know.
That's exciting. Like they're gonna be big hits. I think these mics are hot.
And tomorrow wants me to tell her who is the counselor for. Should I go in order? Theoretically, it should be
Joe.
Tanisha. Yeah. So actually, she's going to go first. Mara's probably going to go first. Yes, Tanisha gets here in time, so. turn live, yes. I feel like I should have my list of notaries to sign right now. Okay, we are going to get started. So if everyone can come and get settled, and we'll open this hearing. Well, thank you all for coming. This is a unique Governor's Council hearing in that, generally speaking, we convene at the State House in the Governor's Council chambers. And if you are ever on a Wednesday in Boston and want to join us and have a more traditional experience of Governor's Council, I encourage you to do that. My name is Tara Jacobs. I am the Governor's Counselor for District 8. I represent 102 cities across Western Mass, and Amherst is right in the middle of my very large regional district. I am very happy to be convening a council hearing here in Western Mass. Usually when I have a nominee from Western Mass, I hold a local public hearing to give the community an opportunity to come and speak if they have an experience they want to share of the nominee. But those are far less formal and are really a secondary to the official Governor's Council hearing that generally, as I mentioned, is in the State House. So today, this is the official Governor's Council hearing. It's being live streamed and will be available on YouTube to watch later. And we are going to hold it in the typical format that we hold when we are at the State House, the Governor's Council hearings. So with that, first I'm going to read the letter from the Governor that nominated Attorney Benjamin Mann. Dated September 24th, 2025, to the Executive Council. Dear Councilors, I am pleased to nominate Benjamin P. Mann to the position of Associate Justice of the Juvenile Court. I submit this nomination for the advice and consent of the Executive Council. Pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I am enclosing the nominee's resume for your convenience. Sincerely signed, Maura T. Healy. Let me introduce the council members. There are council members here. There's one stuck in traffic on the way here, and there are some who are joining us remotely on Zoom. As I mentioned, I am Tara Jacobs, District 8. District 7, to my right, is Councilor Paul DiPaolo, representing Central Mass. En route, joining us in flow at some point, is Councilor Tamisha Civil. She represents District 2, which is the Framingham, we all have many cities and towns. Remotely joining us, listening right now. Has that gone live? It is? Okay. Usually we see it. But as long as we're good, we're good. So on Zoom, on the screen behind us, eventually will be joining us from District 3, Councilor Mara Dolan, and from District 5, Councilor Eunice Ziegler. Potentially other councilors may join us remotely as well, in which case hopefully someone will signal to me that they are there. The first thing I'd like to do, congratulations to your nominee, is offer you a chance to introduce to us those who have come from your family and your supporters and your witnesses who are here with you today.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'll start off by saying why my family is here. This is my father, Chris, my mom, Sandra, my daughter, Katie, my wife, Elaine, my son, Colton. I have 3 witnesses here as well. I have Clerk Magistrate Mary Glant Cody, Deputy Legal Counsel Andrew Blayfeld, and First Justice David Paradise.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
We are going to begin by calling up your witnesses one at a time, giving them an opportunity to speak on your behalf. First up, we do have Attorney Andrew Blayfeld, so if you can come up. And I think probably given the audio, usually we say sit or stand. I think sitting is probably best for the mic.
Good afternoon. My name is Andy Blayfeld, and I've been a colleague, supervisor, mentor, and friend of Ben's for more than a decade. I'm honored to be invited to speak on Ben's behalf today, and I appreciate those who traveled to Western Mass for this event. In preparing my words for today, I thought a lot about the JNC, the Governor's Council, and all those involved in making the decision to select the right candidate for such an important job. At a time when it seems people are making bad decisions every day that is impacting the lives of people of our community, I want to thank everyone here who has been a part of this process to nominate Ben Mann for a judgeship in the Juvenile Court. We are here because you made a good decision. Thank you. Today is Ben's least favorite part of the process, because he has to sit here and listen to friends and colleagues say good things about him. He is humble. Ben has dedicated his career to serving the community, from the Holyoke Public School teacher, District Attorney's Office, Department of Children and Families, and the Springfield Juvenile Court Clerk's Office. He serves with compassion and understanding. Most of Ben's career choices have put him in a position where he's interacting with or assisting people who are struggling, are in a bad way, and have hit their low. Ben is kind and empathetic, and he has the distinct ability to recognize this struggle and always offers a helping hand. Juvenile court practice involves parties from a variety of backgrounds. At times there's conflict, occasional confrontation, and sensitive fact patterns. While setting limits, Ben manages to respond consistently with respect and professionalism. He is solution-focused, his decision-making is thoughtful, yet clear and concrete. I know Ben, and I know the juvenile court, and I have a good understanding of the community we serve. We are in good hands with Ben on the bench. I spoke with Ben last week in preparation for today, and he said to me, I just want to do the work and serve my community. He will make an exemplary judge. Thank you for making a good decision.
Thank you. I'd like to offer the opportunity to the one counselor in the room to, if you have any questions?
No. Thank you.
Can you let me know back there if counselors on the Zoom have a question? Usually not, but just in case, just pay attention. Doesn't seem like it? Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate your testimony. Thank you for making a long drive to Amherst. Next, I'd like to call up Mary Gallant-Cody, who is the clerk magistrate for Berkshire.
Good afternoon to the council and Chairperson Jacobs. Out of respect for everybody's time today, I spent a lot of time thinking about how I could talk about Ben and describe him in a way that would be meaningful, but maybe not apparent from his written or his application materials. I've known Ben for almost 20 years in a lot of different capacities, and I want to focus my remarks on the time I spent working opposite him, because that is the time during which I developed such a high opinion of him as a person. I have zero doubts about Attorney Mann's suitability for the bench when it comes to his intelligence, his judgment, or his experience. But again, I developed my regard for him working as opposing counsel for him when I was a defense attorney in the Hamden County Juvenile Court and he was counsel for DCF. The relationship between those two roles is often contentious, to say the least, but I must say that when Attorney Mann would be the DCF attorney on the case, I would breathe a sigh of relief, and I mean that genuinely. And this isn't because he wasn't a ferocious advocate. He was smart, he was prepared, he was a dedicated litigator. But it was because of the integrity that he brought to his work and everything he does. The juvenile court, I believe, is where the most important legal work in the Commonwealth happens. These are families, these are real people, and the fabric of their lives is at stake, and he never ever lost sight of that responsibility. He recognized the importance of the work and what was at stake. And he did all the things you hope opposing counsel will always do in litigation. He got you discovery and exhibits. He returned your phone calls. He negotiated in good faith. But I think more important than that, he showed kindness and courtesy and respect to the litigants in the court who are facing some of the most terrible circumstances that that people in the Commonwealth face. He was the first DCF attorney to praise a parent's success when they were working hard toward reunification, but he never lost sight of his obligations or the importance of the safety and well-being of the children in the Commonwealth. Attorney Mann treats everybody with dignity and respect, not because of any position they have or title that they hold, but because that's just how he treats other human beings. And I think as a person nominated for the bench, that is an extraordinarily important quality. If confirmed, I have no doubt he'll bring not only his sound judgment to the bench, but also his compassion and his humanity. He holds himself not only to the highest professional standards, but also personal ones too. I have to say, in the years I've known him, he has always spoken about his wife with respect and reverence, and his wonderful children are a testament to his dedication as a father. He has been a friend and a colleague of the highest caliber, and I'm very honored to be here on his behalf today, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Anything from online? No? Then
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. I appreciate it. And next, I'd like to call up the Honorable David Paradise. Thank you for being here, Your Honor.
Nice to see you. So, good afternoon. Just for the record, my name is David Paradise. I'm the first justice for the Hampden County Juvenile Court. I want to thank the Governor's Council for all the hard work you do for the citizens of the Commonwealth and for holding a public hearing in the western part of the state. It has great meaning for the local practitioners. I'm here today in support of the nomination of Benjamin Mann for the position of Associate Justice of the Juvenile Court. Even though we do not have a personal relationship, I'd say outside of work with Attorney Mann, in my professional capacity, I've had an opportunity to observe him as a practicing attorney and an assistant clerk magistrate. While I was a practicing attorney, we had many cases together. He was always well prepared, worked well with opposing counsel, and respectful to the attorneys, the parties, and the court. He was always responsive to emails, texts, and calls, and I had other comments, but I think covered by by Mary and Andy. So when I became an associate justice in January of 2020, he appeared before me often. I had a greater appreciation for his preparation and ability to present an efficient and compelling case. I knew that as a practicing attorney, but it's even greater significance when you're a judge. I was on the hiring panel for his application to become an assistant clerk magistrate. His background working with children and families as a music teacher in Holyoke, and I grew up in Holyoke, so I appreciate that for the citizens of Holyoke. Criminal experience working for the district attorney's office and work with the Department of Children and Families made him an exceptional candidate for that role. He was the hiring panel's unanimous first choice for the position. While in that role, he has proven himself to be open-minded and fair on show cause hearings. I have read a written decision issued by him on a complicated show cause hearing, and he's a very capable writer. He is always, he's very tech savvy, and our county and the trial court as a whole are expanding the use of technology, and he'll be very helpful and useful in that goal. So given his extensive background and abilities, I ask that you confirm Benjamin Mann for the position of Associate Justice of Juvenile Court. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there recall judges in Western Mass right now in juvenile court?
There are not now. We had one, and in March, she retired. She was 8 years on recall, and she stopped. So, and we actually have a judge that's retired, so we are struggling in that department.
Will this, assuming a positive confirmation process, will this cover that, or there's still outstanding beyond that, there's still a need in Western Mass at the juvenile court level?
I think our hope isn't covered, but there's a lot of openings happening throughout the whole state, even though there's some judges that I think I confirmed in that practice in Worcester, they're in Suffolk County, so the Chief Justice will have to decide where a person goes, but we are hopeful that he'll be able to come and afford. We have a future retirement happening in the western part of the state, so for many months, we're going to be scrambling and trying to fill those vacancies.
It's good to know. All right. Well, thank you so much.
All right,
I
you're
appreciate being
welcome.
here. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'd like to
Any
introduce
questions?
Tamisha Civil, who is our counselor from District 2.
Welcome.
Yeah. Are there any questions from the Zoom, or we're all set? All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. Great. You okay? Okay. With that, I turn to you to offer your personal statement and share with us why you will be a wonderful judge if confirmed.
Well, thank you very much, Councilor Jacobs. And thank you to all the members of the Governor's Council here today. I appreciate your time, your attention, your dedication to this important process. I've enjoyed each of our conversations. I found them thorough, engaging, and insightful when we spoke, and I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. I also want to thank Governor Maura Healey, Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, for the incredible honor of this nomination and the confidence they've placed in me. I want to thank Derek Kesselheim, Jesse Boudou, as well as Paige Scott Reed, and all of the members of the Judicial Nominating Committee. And thank you to Clerk Magistrate Mary Glenn Cody, Deputy Regional Counsel Andrew Blayfeld, First Justice David Paradise for your kind words and support, not only here today, but over the last decade plus at the Springfield Juvenile Court. Walking into court over the last few weeks and here today, seeing so many familiar faces, congratulating me, wishing me kind words, I've been simply overwhelmed. Friends, mentors, colleagues, there are too many important people for me to thank and name here, but I want them all to know, whether they're on Zoom, here in the room, or going to watch this later. I appreciate each and every one of them for their kinship, encouragement, and all of their personal contributions to my journey. I'd also like to recognize my family here with me today, my mom and dad, Sandra and Christopher Mann. It goes without saying, I wouldn't be the person I am today without your love, your guidance, and your example. Lifelong educators, each of them, they taught me by their actions how to live well, overcome challenges, and the importance of community engagement. And even today, they're still teaching me about true love, commitment, and perseverance. I appreciate you being here today. Also with me are my daughter, Katie, and my son, Colton. I couldn't ask for two more vibrant young people, and helping you become what you're meant to be is the adventure of my lifetime. And finally, my wife, my teammate, my love, Elaine. I couldn't have done any of this without you by my side. Thank you all for coming here today. I'd like to begin today with a quote from Albert Schweitzer that I first read in an inspirational booklet I was gifted by one of my students very early in my career. It goes like this: I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I do know, the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who will have sought and found how to serve. I start with this insight today because service, to me, is what truly motivates me to start each and every day, and it's been a thread running through every successful and happy chapter in my life. I first felt the joy of service as a young person at Gateway Regional High School in Huntington, Massachusetts, as president of my class and captain of my soccer team. I learned it better still at Hamilton College in Clinton, New York, as the elected chair of the Judicial Board and the captain of the Hamilton College Rugby Football Club. Later, when I returned to Western Massachusetts, not long after graduation, I had the good fortune and the good sense to embrace a special opportunity to teach music at Holyoke Magnet Middle School for the Arts. This experience changed me profoundly. I learned so much by teaching at Magnet. Perhaps the best lesson of all, though, was that art is not something you do, but something that you are. And I believe the same could be said of service. Many of my students in Holyoke came from families facing dire economic and personal challenges, yet every day they brought energy, creativity, and hope into our classrooms. Teaching at Magnet alongside the talented and devoted educator artists there reinforced my belief that opportunity is one of the greatest gifts we can give, and that public service at its heart is about expanding opportunity for those who might not otherwise have it. It cannot be stressed enough. When we invest in young people, we invest in the strength of our communities and the future of our Commonwealth. After several rewarding years in the classroom, I chose to pursue a law degree at Western New England College in Springfield, seeking a new way to serve the public. After law school, I began my legal career as an assistant district attorney at the Northwest District Attorney's Office in Hampshire County. There, I learned the true weight of the responsibilities one carries as an attorney representing the Commonwealth, the balance between enforcing the law and ensuring real justice for all, including the defendants facing charges. Every legal decision has real consequences for real people, and that experience shaped my understanding of fairness, empathy, and the intense duty we owe to those who come before the court. Following my time as an assistant district attorney, I joined the Department of Children and Families in Springfield, serving Hamden County for nearly a decade. That work, Protecting children and supporting families in crisis was some of the most challenging and meaningful work I've ever done. It required not only legal skill, but compassion, patience, and respect for the resilience of the families we served. I saw that people came into contact with our legal and social service systems during the hardest and most traumatic moments of their lives. I saw up close that it was our role to meet them where they were with dignity, fairness, and humanity. Most recently, I had the privilege of serving as the Assistant Clerk Magistrate at the Springfield Juvenile Court. In many ways, this is where my passion for service, my background as a teacher, and my ability as a litigator finally came together. This role allowed me to leverage all of my gifts and has given me a deeper reverence for the court as a living institution, one that depends on integrity, diligence, and compassion of every person who comes to work every day to be a steward of justice. The court's house is not just a building where cases are decided. It's a place where the public comes seeking fairness, resolution, and perhaps most importantly, hope. Every interaction matters, every decision has meaning, and everyone contributes collaboratively to that mission of service. Throughout my life, I have been guided by the belief that service is both a privilege and a calling. I have at times reflected on whether or not I'll be ever able to truly repay my family and my community for the time, the energy, and the love they have invested in me. If I've taken anything away from this process, applying to become an Associate Justice over the last year, it's how extremely blessed I have been by the many people who have accompanied me and assisted me on my journey so far. So if I had to express to you my one wish, sitting before you in this chapel here today, is that you'll grant me the amazing honor to continue growing and working diligently on my dream to make the most of my gifts granted me and allow me the opportunity to work unwaveringly to repay my debt to my community. I'm so deeply humbled by Governor Healey's nomination and by the profound trust of the people of the Commonwealth that this nomination represents. I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed by your vote. I can promise you this: I will strive every single day to be worthy of that trust, to serve the people of the Commonwealth with fairness, integrity, and compassion, to be willing to hold myself to a higher standard, to uphold the dignity of the court, and to ensure that every person who enters our halls senses on an elemental level that they have been heard, had their position fairly and thoughtfully considered, and treated as a fellow human being with the decency, empathy, and respect they deserve. This nomination is truly the honor of my life. I thank you again for your time and your consideration, and I truly look forward to answering any questions you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, you're good? Okay. So Councilor Civil has just joined us, but is ready to go. So generally our practice is we go around by order of the districts that sit to the right of the chairing council. And so District 2 is the first one present here. We don't have District 1. Do we have, Joe Ferrera's not on, right? Okay, yep, then you are first.
Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Mann, on becoming Associate Justice nominee for Juvenile Court. It's a pleasure to see you, as well as being around some of our college students here. You know, we had a wonderful conversation, and I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to speak to you and learn about you and your work experience. You definitely have the professional experience to be in this position. When we talk about juvenile court, we're dealing with the youth. And we know that, you know, young people sometimes make mistakes, and we need to make sure that we're giving them resources and access to give them a second opportunity to make sure that they are not only reoffending but coming back into the criminal justice system. My question for you is, have you worked with any diversion or treatment programs for substance abuse involved youth? If so, what role did you play?
Well, the first thing I'd say is thank you so much for calling me the other day and taking a long time to chat with me on the phone. I appreciated that personal touch, and I want to say thank you for that. At our court, when we deal with situations with young people and diversion in general, and diversion for substance abuse issues, I'll say this, I don't think any of us would like to be judged by how we were when we were 15, 16 years old. All of us have come a long way, and I don't believe you should do this work if you don't think people can change and you don't think people can do make changes in life and do better than they did when they were younger. All of us are learning. All of us are going somewhere different than where we were. In my role as assistant clerk magistrate, we had a lot of opportunities to have young people before us and have them not enter the system, use things like clerk's diversion. I thoroughly enjoy talking to parents of children, helping them get to the right resources to get out in front of things. I talk to them frequently about tools in the toolbox for parents helping those young people. And I think when we bring people into our courthouse, into our courtrooms and our side conference rooms, and we talk with them, and we get everyone that could be involved working in the right direction, we can make significant changes in young people's lives. And I can only imagine that as a judge I'll have different opportunities to do outreach in the community and to see those young people in court and get them the help that they need so they can go on to become great, they can achieve their dreams. I think that's what we really all want for our children in the juvenile court.
Thank you so much. And as we talk about second opportunities and opportunities to, be able to go forth with our dreams, what was more intriguing to our conversation is how you were vulnerable enough to share your own personal experience without even getting into too much detail. I think it's very important that our young people are able to see the process of how to become a judge, and that there will be times that we will make mistakes, but it's also important that we have someone who understands that, I once made a mistake and I'm able to get a second opportunity, and that you'll be able to recognize the signs. You'll be able not only to give the youth an opportunity to go forth their goals, but their parents, helping them get into resources and treatment programs. We do know that alcohol and drugs are prevalent in our colleges. Being once a college student 20 years ago, I would say, there was a lot of things that I was exposed to, but I didn't get involved in them, but I did see some of my friends that got impacted. And if given the resources that they needed, they probably would have went into a different direction in their lives. Just talk to me how important it is when our young people are going through a traumatic experience in their lives. They're looking for help, but also feel that adults don't understand where they're coming from, and they may take the advice of friends instead of parents or family members who are older and wiser than them. Share a little bit about what you learned through your personal experience that you will be able to identify once a juvenile comes in front of you, and that you're able to say, I've seen this before, I know what this person needs, and I'm going to help this family overcome this challenge that they're facing.
I just love that question, and I really appreciate it. No, thank you. I think that people who have been through trauma, been through damage, and have come back from that and been in the community have a more informed experience, authority, perspective to talk to young people. And I think that I absolutely love at our court when we have young people that have been through things like you're talking about, seen things. Those are the people that we want doing the outreach, right? I mean, those are the people we want to have a gateway, to get to the court, to talk about this stuff with authority. And, I think as a teacher, as a prosecutor here in Eastern Hampshire District Court that covered the UMass cases that they would have here from time to time, nobody likes to be talked down to. No one likes to be shouted at. No one likes to be othered. And I think that's what makes the work that you're doing here so important today, and the JNC and the people that did background checks to get the right people that are going to be able to see that. People that have had damage, people that have had trauma, that know what that feels like to not feel like people understand you, and to speak with compassion and kindness and empathy and togetherness. We want our court to be a place where people come out of it better than they did when they came in.
Right.
They didn't show up here because things were going well. I always say that at my front counter with my staff that I absolutely adore. I talk about that. That's not why they're here, because things are going well. And you don't want to compound that. And what's better than that? Helping somebody out when they're in a bad place.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why I want to do this work. I want to do more of it. There's nothing better to me than that.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for sharing that. No further questions.
Thank you very much. We're going to turn it to a remote participating counselor, District 3's Counselor Mara Dolan. I think you're muted.
There we go. Thank you so much, Counselor Jacobs. And hello, Western Mass. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there in person, but delighted to at least be able to appear remotely and be a part of this. I am hearing an echo. I don't know if you are. There's an echo? I'm sorry, I am on headphones. Oh, not for you. Good, just the online folks. Okay, that's good. Attorney Mann, I wanted to draw your attention to, and I know you saw this, story that the Globe recently ran on children in DCF custody who are going missing. And it's about 600 a year. The numbers are even more alarming once you break them down. It's 1 out of every 22. It's 1 out of every 7 teens. And the percentage of Hispanic and Black children who go missing is much higher than white kids. I'm really grateful for the experience that you had working for DCF. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to what you would do as a judge to address the issue of the children going missing.
Well, I just wanted to say I really enjoyed our conversation as well, and thanks for taking time to chat with me. And I actually spent $1 and got myself a Boston Globe Online account after we spoke, so I go back and read that in full, and I did. And I don't think anyone can read that article and not be shocked and have high expectations for DCF. That number is staggering and problematic. And as I read it, I thought about how important the work that, again, this council is doing in selecting people that are going to make the inquiries that can make a difference in that. You know, Councilor Civil and I spoke about calling people out and holding people accountable. You know, there needs to be inquiries, there needs to ask questions. And I know that my friends on the bench, my friends in the Defense Council, my friends at DCF would care very, very much about that number. And I don't think it's okay. And as a judge, I would want to know where the children that I'm assigned to serving on their cases are. I would expect that Defense Counsel spoken with them recently. I'd expect that the social workers that come into court know where the children that I'm working on are. I can't change everything at DCF. I can't change everything at UMass, but I can promise you that if I'm on a case, that it's going to matter to me where the children are that I'm working on. And well, I'm troubled by that number, and I read it, and if true, it's really, really problematic, and everyone should be upset by that.
Well, I appreciated when we spoke that you talked about making sure that when parties appear before you, you ask them. And so they will know that when they're going to be before you, they need to have an answer, which I think is critically important. And I appreciate that answer very much, because I appreciate what you said today. I just have one other question for you. As we discussed, and I really enjoyed our conversation too, I love the experience that you had as an arts educator at the Holyoke Magnet Middle School for the Arts. And I wondered if you would apply anything you learned about arts education to maybe some creative sentencing.
I think that's a great question. I thought it was great, and I hadn't thought about it when you talked to me about it the other day, but I've had some time to reflect on that. And one of the things I've done as an assistant clerk magistrate is our clerk's office places a significant emphasis on bringing victims in to the court to talk about how things impacted them. I think it's important for young people to know how their actions impact other people. I think that's a big part of growing up, is knowing that you're just not you, that your actions affect other people. And I think we've been at our most successful when we have people from the community in to know that government can work, to know that government is listening to them. And so I think your suggestion is a fantastic one. And I know lots of folks in Western Massachusetts. I'm still in contact with my friends at Magnet Middle School. Went to a reunion last summer. There are a lot of people that could take the energy that a young person has put in a poor direction and put it in something that manifests as something that's helpful to the community. I've worked with a couple different young people, more than a couple, but people that have used their energies in not a great direction. And I've said to them, our community needs you. You know, this energy you put into this thing that was not great. We need more kindness in our community. We need more art in our community. We need more music in our community. So I've thought about that a lot, and I think that, you know, that's where we've talked about justice as being part of the community and being able to apply things. I think that's a wonderful idea. And I would talk to some folks that I know and think of creative ways to use the energy that young people have in a positive direction. So
I think that
appreciate
would
question.
be absolutely fantastic. And after we spoke, I realized that is the basis for the plot in the movie Step Up, that someone has vandalized an arts high school and he's assigned community service at the school. It turns out he's an incredibly talented dancer, and all sorts of wonderful things come from that. So we can make that happen in real life. And I love that. Thank you so much. No further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, next I'd like to turn to Counselor Ziegler, representing District 5.
Thank you so much, Counselor. Attorney Mann, see you. Thank you for taking the conversation prior to this hearing. I have to say, along with my colleague of the court.
Counselor Ziegler, there's a weird pixelation happening with your audio.
Oh, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll restart. Apologies. I just was acknowledging that we had a lovely conversation prior to this hearing. And I've also received quite a number of letters of support supporting your nomination to juvenile court. So it's an honor to be here to have this have further conversation with you in this public space. So I think it's refreshing, the experience that you bring to the table with over 20 years of experience. I appreciate your experience as a teacher and the lens that will bring to the bench, because in many ways, a judge in juvenile court is somewhat of a teacher, right? Is somewhat of an individual that can have an impact on a youth coming before them that may be misguided. And so I bring that up to say, you know, should you be confirmed, there may be situations where you see a repeat offender come before you. How would you approach cases such as this?
Well, I'd like to start by saying I really enjoyed our conversation. You and Samuel, enjoyed speaking with you both the other night, and I just think it's pretty fantastic. You'd call me after hours, take time away from your family, and chat with me and make time for me. I think it shows your commitment to the process. So just thank you very much for that first. I want to make sure I acknowledge that. That's not easy to do. If confirmed as a judge, when we see repeat offenders, there's something else going on. And I think I talked a little bit earlier in my last question about that inquiry. And I think when the juvenile court is at its best, we're tailoring our response to the needs of the individual child, whether that's in a care and protection case with a parent or in delinquencies with the child involved. If we're seeing the same thing over and over again, what we're doing doesn't work. I talk about this with parents when they come in on a CRA. You know, if you do the same thing over and over again, that's the definition of madness. If you're not getting there. And like good parents ask for help, good parents are looking for more tools in the toolbox. I think you should expect the same of judges that are sitting on the bench. If we're not getting there with a young person, are we not using the right tools in our toolbox? Are we not getting to them in a way that's meaningful to them? Are there situations that we're not touching on as a delinquency issue or a CRA? I think that it's an obligation of a judge to get as many people involved in the process, whether it's the family, probation officers, GALs, the attorney involved. Sometimes you may want to consider, educators and that type of thing, because I think that we really want the best for all of our children. And if they're offending again and again and again, they're not going to be allowed the opportunity to come back from that. And I work a lot on expungements and sealing records on my role as district court magistrate, and I've seen young people that go on to do amazing things, that have a laundry list of offenses. And when I talk to them sometimes, they're doing great, and they're doing wonderful. And you kind of wonder if they hadn't had these issues happen to them along the way or gotten involved in things along the way, what else they could have achieved. So I think that it's our obligation to look out for that, to see if we're not making progress, and try something different than what we're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. You know, a part of the consideration that should be included in those discussions is about juvenile mental health.
Yes.
When we spoke, we talked about resources that were available, and you had said that, you know, mental health resources were some that there could be some improvements to. Would you speak to how you would try to encourage expansion of those kind of resources, and what your outlook is of the juvenile court currently?
Well, I would say that when it comes to questions of mental health and that type of thing, I think we really rely on specialists to speak to that question, GALs and other medical professionals. And I know that the court's done a lot working with different programs in the community to work with young people. I know DCF's worked with that a little bit as well. I think it's the responsibility of the judge to listen sometimes more than speak, and make inquiries of what options are available for our young people. Mental health, particularly in young people, post-COVID, is a significant issue. I see it every day at my court, young people coming in. And I know that we field different types of sections for working with young people and getting them the help that they need. I see young people working on themselves. I see them wanting to get better, and we have to find the resources to help them. And we're somewhat limited right now when it comes to beds to have young people go there. We have sometimes one bed. That's not enough. We need more resources. We need more help to be able to get young people the help that they need, especially when they're asking for it, especially when their parents are asking for it. And I think that as a judge, I would advocate for more resources, more help, to have a response available, to have a response ready to help them when they're ready.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My last question, kind of in line with my question before, you know, you'd be dealing with the most vulnerable people within our Commonwealth. So time is of the essence. How would you seek to, you know, make some headway against the claims that the court system just takes way too long, and that, you know, cases aren't given their due process because of all these time constraints that are placed upon the review of cases and expediency of that review of cases that come before the juvenile court?
Yeah, I wrote about that in my application, and it was something that was a point of emphasis for me, and I'm really glad that you asked that question, because I think it's really important. You know, I oftentimes think about the passage of time, and that, you know, 18 years in the life of a child is their childhood, and that means that every season that passes is a full year of childhood. We think about how time expands and changes for young people. So if we go out 9 months, that's 3 years of childhood right there, after their life was expanded out to a full lifetime. So I think that there's a obligation to move as quickly as possible. And I've thought about and I've spoken about how judges have their hand on the throttle of making cases go at the correct speed. And I think that sometimes that's fast and sometimes it's slow. And I think that judges have an obligation to ask the right questions, to understand that if the parents are involved in getting into services and there's a delay in services, if they're doing the best that they can, then that's the situation as it is. But I frequently think about the fact that when there is a removal in a care and protection case, and I said this before and I'll say it again, the people that are most significantly impacted by the removal are the people that are least able to have an impact on the speed at which that case goes. Children don't get to go home at night, and that would never diminish a parents having their children not in their home. But children have to go to a strange place. Children have to maybe go to a kinship placement. Children's schooling is affected. So it takes all of us, defense counsel, DCF, GALs, court investigators, CASA, probation officers, to make sure that case is moving as fast as possible. But again, the buck stops here. The judge has to make sure people are on their best game every single day, and it's a setting of the example to make sure that case goes. And the questions, the inquiry, that's really what's most important. And setting a case at the right speed, not fast or too slow, is really what's the primary obligation of a judge in that case.
Thank you. I appreciate your responses to my questions. That's all that I have for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Now I turn it over to our counselor from Central Mass District 7, Counselor DePaula.
Thank you, Counselor. Good afternoon. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Before I get into my conversation with you, I just want to thank our Governor's Chief Legal Counsel and Deputy Legal Counsel, Counselor Jacobs, and everyone who at UMass and at the State House put this together. It's great to have the Governor's Council on the road. As Counselor Jacobs pointed out, I represent Central Mass, so between the two of us, that's 1/4 of the state, and we're always grateful when people remember that we exist. To the west of 495. So we had a great conversation, and you indulged me on some questions about technology and logistics that were arcane, I suppose. But we also talked a little bit about the role that someone on the bench can play as a convener of some of the stakeholders that impact the juvenile court. As an advocate for the issues that you're seeing on the bench that others might not see, your experience with DCF, I mean, I just heard you talking about a lack of beds. I've heard the term lobby kids used. Is that a term you're familiar with?
Unfortunately, I have heard that term.
And what is a
know that it
lobby
happens.
kid for the public who wouldn't know what we're referring to?
Well, the way I've heard it used is that children that are living night to night in essentially an office.
Sure.
I don't believe it's something that happens with a high level of frequency, but it shouldn't happen at all, ever. And the people that I know at DCF would be horrified if they learned that was something that was being used with any level of frequency. And it's not okay, so.
Yeah, no one's happy about it, and it's
No.
certainly not frequent, but it's this notion that beds are so tight that in fact
Yeah.
kids are spending entire days waiting in an office lobby for an emergency placement
Yes.
to be conjured at the end of the day. So raising issues like this, it's always important in all of us in government to be able to make sure we're advocating to the voices that have the power to provide resources for things like that. So I wanted to just kind of elucidate some of the judicial philosophy you'll bring as a juvenile court judge in particular by walking through a phenomenon that's kind of familiar to me in my work, and that's the trauma to prison pipeline. So this idea that so many of the folks, especially young adults who are in our district courts and eventually our houses of correction, potentially, their challenges could have been ameliorated by earlier intervention, and the juvenile courts certainly a great place to do that. You have tremendous experience, we should note, and it's come up in this hearing, with care and protection cases and with delinquency cases. And we talked briefly on the phone about CRAs, which is a child requiring assistance. So a child requiring assistance, sometimes it's their first interaction with the court, sometimes they've been there before. There's two main avenues that a child lands there. One of them is if a parent chooses to refer the child to the court. And this came up earlier in the hearing, but we spoke briefly about your current role as assistant clerk, the way you advise parents who might be coming in for just that purpose. Could you talk through how you advise parents and what you see as their kind of needs when they enter the courtroom?
Yeah. I first wanted to say, again, thanks for the time the other morning talking about this, and I mirror your belief that it's really important for Western Mass to have people come out here and, again, know that we exist. I think it's special to every person I've talked to that the advocacy of Counselor Jacobs making this happen today. So just thank you very much. We love having you all out here, so thank you very much for that, and I mirror your thoughts on that. In turning to the question about CRAs, when we have a parent that has run out of solutions and they come to the court to ask for help, those are the people we should be accepting with open arms. It's a hard thing for anyone to say, I don't know what to do anymore. And one of the things that I love most about my job is when I have a parent come to our court and speak with me or one of the other assistant clerk magistrates, well, I don't know what to do now. I don't know what to do. I mean, I don't know what's better than saying, okay, well, I do. I can help you. I can get you to the right people. It's my favorite part of the job. And we joke about it sometimes. I'm like, what's better than that? I'll say that to my staff. But I think that, someone coming in, and we talk with parents about getting out in front of the situation, coming in, even if it's not right for them to file today, maybe it's not right for them to do the CRA today, they have the knowledge, they have the mentality, and they have that, well, I know where people can help me. They can help me at the juvenile court. And so, it's painful sometimes to see a name of a child that a parent came to the court and asked for help, and we started it, and then for whatever reason it didn't continue with me. The parent didn't think it was the right choice for them at the time. And I'm very much concerned about this trauma to prison pipeline that you spoke about earlier. I think those are the people that we're here for, people that things haven't gone well for, the parents. So I think the opportunity to bring them into the system, to not be afraid of us, to not be afraid of asking for help, is one of the most important things we do at the court. And I think sometimes, CRAs get pushed to the back a little bit, care protections, delinquencies, and that type of thing. And I think it's really one of the important things we do at the court. Whether it's working with the school or working with the parents, it's really, really important.
Yeah, so I had asked you about the parents, and then the other major avenue where a child would be referred would be by school district.
Yes.
And we, again, briefly discussed over the last couple of years, the Globe's reported that between 13 and 15% every year increase in school districts referring children to the courts.
Yeah.
Many advocates say that maybe the courts aren't the best place to address the needs that the districts are manifesting or are demonstrating by manifesting that behavior. But I wonder, as a judge, and we hope that you land in Western Mass, where you have deep community ties. But wherever you may end up, because the numbers vary across the state and by district, and districts tend to spike and low in my experience on this particular statistic. But is there pushback on school districts when children are being referred for reasons that perhaps indeed present a challenge to the school district, but don't probably elevate to the level of court involvement? Since again, we know like that first hook into the court system wildly increases one's likelihood of being incarcerated as an adult.
Well, I think, in my experience, schools base their filings on who they have available to make those filings sometimes. So we'll see sometimes one year they have a person in a position to actually file CRAs, or they'll get them late in the year and it's May, and we're getting a stack of filings to come in,
Can I interject? So when
Go ahead,
we
sure.
talk about May, just so that anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, for example, there might be towards the end of the school year, there might be now an accumulated list of children with a high level of absenteeism.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden there might be a batch of children referred by the school district all at once towards the end of the school year, being referred to the courts over their attendance at school.
And I think that those two things. First off, it's kind of late in the process to be able to get involved in the situation. Furthermore, for even a court of our size in Springfield, that can overwhelm the probation officers. If you get, a bunch of cases, that can overwhelm them. Whereas if they came in slowly, people could more accurately and effectively deal with those issues, At our court, I've had the pleasure of working with Lori Levitt-Wheeler, who's the clerk magistrate there right now. One of her favorite things to do is get involved with parents, whether it's in a failure to send case or in a CRA, and get to the root of the issue. Why aren't the kids coming to school? Is that the school wasn't helpful with maybe helping with transportation? Is it that you have two kids that have, for some reason, randomly two bus stops that are, on two different corners, and I've always been really impressed with her willingness to make those inquiries prior to things getting worse, And I think that I've always been impressed by her willingness to ask those questions of parents. Well, why? Why is it? And so I think that I'll get back to one of my statements I made earlier about your question about CRAs. It's incumbent on the people in decision-making capacities to ask the right questions in a non-confrontational, inquisitive fashion to draw people into the system, to get those kids in school, because if they're not in school, they're not improving, and they're not moving forward, and they're not going to do better. So I think it comes down to questions in a respectful fashion and not being unwilling to make that inquiry.
So we're on a tangent right now of particular children who a school district refers to the court as a child requiring assistance, a CRA, due in this example to absenteeism. So the child appears, so for the public's benefit, a CRA, a child requiring assistance, they're referred to the court, they appear in court, yes? And then is it correct that there's a hearing has to happen within a certain framework, and then there's conditions placed on the child for a subsequent, I believe it's 6-week check-in after that? Would that be accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate.
Okay.
I think that one of the tools we use at our court, in my experience, is informal assistance, where we'll try to work with the family prior to that CRA being fully filed. And I know that the probation officers that I've worked with are exceptional in trying to divert that situation out. Again, doing the work that Clerk Wheeler had done, asking the right questions.
Sure.
Figuring out what the issue is. Not just the answer can be a CRA, but it might not be a CRA. And I think that good practitioners of law, social services, know the difference between those two things.
Yeah, and the Office of Child Advocate recently released a report where they recommended increasing the use of those kinds of, trying to divert at that early stage in the process rather than having a child in the court. But let's say a child is referred as it is filed CRA. So now conditions, the judge has the prerogative to place conditions on the child that will be reviewed at a subsequent hearing. Is that true? That's correct. So can you talk about the importance then of individualizing the conditions placed on the child? Because it's essentially going to create a matrix that the child's going to be judged against when they reappear a subsequent time, or it's going to be one of the primary things that's considered at that point, right? So like what are some of the factors you take into account in individualizing what those conditions look like?
Well,
or maybe you think they should be standardized, but share your perspective.
That's a tough question, but it's a good one. I think that my experience with CRAs is that they're at their best when they're very collaborative. A lot of young people coming out of COVID that are now middle schoolers and high schoolers are suffering. Not everybody shouldered that COVID experience the same way. Depending on whether your parents are affluent or not, or working or not, or whether you learned well with a computer or not, we're seeing this in our communities, and we're seeing it in the court right now. And I don't think that a judge on the bench, and I haven't seen this in my experience, but I don't think a judge on the bench, wagging their finger and enforcing standardized CRA conditions is an effective manner in which to get that child back engaged in school.
Can I interject?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
So let's say, for example, the child in our hypothetical here has been referred to the courts as a child requiring assistance by a school district due to absenteeism, and a condition placed on the child, let's say, is tied to school attendance.
Yeah.
And it's a child who clearly has no stable adults in their life, clearly is not succeeding at school or finding a safe haven at school since they're not attending school. So then in 6 weeks, they come before the court and they've violated their attendance expectation. But I could have told you 6 weeks before that they were going to violate their attendance expectation.
Yeah.
And then there's the possibility, this isn't the mainstream, this is we're talking in hypotheticals. Then there's the possibility that the child could be taken into state custody at that point. And this is kind of the trail that I've seen children I've worked with follow. So I'm wondering, as a former arts teacher, if there's nothing if all of the classes at school that engaged a child have been taken away when they are forced to return to school.
Yeah.
And maybe they're in remedial MCAS rooms, which is, they almost certainly are, depending on the district and what the needs are of the district. Is that a mitigating factor? When we talk about criminal sentencing, we talk about mitigating factors and aggravating factors.
Yeah.
Is it a mitigating factor if the thing that the child enjoys has been taken away?
Yeah.
When we're thinking about their behavior?
Well, I think that hypothetical is pretty specific. When I was a teacher at Magnet, I would frequently have students come up and talk to me and tell me that the best part of their day was being at school. They got to play their instruments, they got to do art, they had adults that were kind to them, that were respectful of them. It was stable. I remember the first time I had a young person tell me that they couldn't practice their instrument because there was dog fighting going on outside last night, and there was craziness going outside. And I frankly didn't believe them. I thought that was a fantastical story, but that is what some of our kids are dealing with. Or there's really bad things going on in the house. You know, so I think that frequently, for a lot of young people, school is a great part of their day. And so to your question, I think as judges, I think as people that believe in school, that believe in the court, we want those young people to be in school. But I think we need to ask why are they not in school? Do they need more assistance? Do they need parents? Are they getting bullied at school? Is there a particular educator that's making them fearful? Are they being re-traumatized there by other students? Or, how is school spoken about in their home? But again, it gets back to the work that you're doing here, to put the right people, to ask the right questions, to not get them in that pipeline, to just get them shuffled off with a set of circumstances that are imposed on them. I mean, I don't think a CRA should be imposed on people. We talk about it as, very parent-focused, very, very focused on helping people, not being punitive. So I take your concerns. I hear you. I think it really comes down to the advocacy for attorneys involved, probation officers, parents, judges, to make sure that situation doesn't happen. And I don't know if that's answered your question or not.
No,
I'm doing my best.
Your
with it.
perspective on the issue is uplifting, and I'm almost done. I have one more
You
follow-up
can ask as
question.
many questions as you want. That's what I'm doing today.
Because I've worked in therapeutic high schools
Yes.
where we're serving at-risk youth, and the
Yeah.
arts program is so integral in
Yes,
engaging
yes.
the kids there. And in fact, one such therapeutic high school I worked at was during the early stages of COVID, and I had a bunch of students who were living in DCF group homes at the time. And I have infinite respect for DCF folks because the work is hard work and it's under-resourced. And the challenges are very real and in some cases dangerous. So I have tremendous respect for everyone who's working with our children and our families in that department. However, I did have students, and they weren't always attending in person during COVID, and so I was fortunate to be at a place where they were bringing kids in 3 days a week. But sometimes the outliers are children who aren't feeling safe in their group homes for very legitimate reasons, physically safe, let alone bullied or whatever. And so they run away from their group home. And so we see statistics like I heard cited earlier in the Boston Globe that, 1 in X teens is missing from DCF care. And it's not because it's because they're trying to go missing because they don't feel safe. And so, again, I just wonder these kinds of things, I guess this isn't a question because you've answered it, these kinds of things that are mitigating factors when we're considering a child's behavior over the time since they've appeared, for their initial hearing and then their 6-week hearing.
Well, I want to touch on something you said there because I couldn't agree with you more. When I was a teacher, I had a young man who was a trumpet player, and he didn't start as a trumpet player. He came in and he started playing trumpet, and this was a young person who misbehaved in class, but I think his owner would have said, "I'm not good at anything." And he came in and he started playing trumpet, and he quickly had a talent for it, and so he quickly was seated first chair in our band. And I remember talking to other teachers in the academic classes that he had a vast improvement in his academic classes as well, because he had that experience of, I can be good at something. I can be good at something. I am good at something. And if I'm good at something, then I could be good at other things too. And so, and this is where we get back to being the importance of school for those young people. I'm troubled by young people being scared to be in their group home. I know that kind of thing happens. I'm not so Pollyanna to pretend that every group home is the best of all possible worlds. But we're supposed to look out for our young people. We're supposed to get them into school. We're supposed to get them to find the thing that they can be good at. So they can be good at that one thing and other things too. And so if they're feeling victimized, people have to put a stop to that. And adults have to speak up. And I say this in court all the time. It's very rarely the children. It's the adults, it's us. We're supposed to look out for them. So that's troubling to hear that.
Thank you. You've indulged my inquiries. I appreciate it. And I'll just add, at the end, we briefly mentioned, but I do like to mention the court-appointed special advocate program, CASA, that exists in various parts of the state, and what an impact having an adult, this organization serves children in foster care, but to have an adult who's going to be in the child's corner when they're navigating court is so important, and we know that actually the work of those volunteers create much better outcomes for our children. So I appreciate that you'll be a judge who'll continue to find opportunity to be integrating them with their court.
We love our GALs, we love our CASA workers. They're incredibly helpful, providing a unique perspective. And I think the more people that are willing to provide their thoughts for young people, the better.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for indulging me, Counselor. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, my turn. Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you.
It's been mentioned, but we did get a nice stack of complimentary supportive letters on your behalf.
Thank you.
That was very helpful in further understanding you. Many of the questions I had down have been asked, and so I've been crossing things off as we've been going. I have a couple that I will ask, but I'm going to keep it brief because when we conclude this, we're going to take a brief break so that we can all celebrate the fact that you've come through your hearing, take some pictures, but then I encourage everyone to stay who wants to participate in a Q&A with counsel at the conclusion of the hearing, so just to give a sense of what we're doing next. So I do have a couple questions. We talked, I'm pretty sure I'm remembering correctly, it was you and I that had this conversation. They get a little blurry, all the conversations, but around bias, about racial bias, socioeconomic bias, and about, I kind of want to call it like the bias of absence. So like there are privileged, wealthier community, better resourced parents, possibly more white, representing kids who are not showing up in court, who are doing the things that the kids who are showing up in court are doing and getting caught and getting brought into court for. And so there's a sense around in the courts about who's doing the things and why are they doing the things, but you're not seeing all the other kids who are busy doing things and not showing up in court. Does that make sense?
That does make sense, yeah.
And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about, and I think we were talking about shoplifting specifically when we were talking about it, right? Did we have this conversation?
Yes, we did.
Yes? Okay, cool.
You remember well.
Excellent. I thought so. But the shoplifting one is an interesting one because the mechanisms of the whys, the psychology about the whys, like need-based versus thrill of the whatever-based for teenagers, and then who actually ends up showing up in court for it, and who either gets a pass from the merchant who's like, or mom's going to come and pay for that, or I know you're a good kid, so we're not gonna prosecute, versus the ones who I don't see you as a good kid and I'm gonna prosecute you. Right. The racial bias of all that. I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about, from your perspective, what role a judge can play in course correcting that kind of bias.
Yeah. I first want to say thanks for the afternoon up in North Adams. I enjoyed Mass Mocha. It was a great conversation with you, and I really, it was one of my favorite parts of this whole process was to kind
I'm
of just...
sorry you hit a bear on the way.
Yeah, that was a very interesting experience. It was a true Western Mass there. Now, I can't promise that experience for everyone that comes out here, but that was mine. So either way, but that was a great day, and I appreciate the time you put into getting to know me, and that was very special for me, so thank you. When we talk about the bias of absence, I thought about that a lot after we talked about it, and I think that with many of our counselors I've spoken with, there's been some thought-provoking questions that ones that I had heard, ones I had not heard, ones I thought about again, and I thought about that a lot, and for me as a DCF attorney and a prosecutor and now an assistant court magistrate, I really relied on the police officers that I spoke with to know who was in your community, and I relied on them. But I also was thoughtful about the fact that what you were talking about, that not everyone is making it here, and that opportunities to have frank, open, and honest dialogue, whether it's in a magistrate hearing room with young people, I think that's a kind and effective way to maybe bridge that gap. If I can have a conversation in a magistrate room, not in the court, prior to arraignment, with a young person, and I've seen the full spectrum of their folks in there with their parents that could not be more embarrassed about their actions, then maybe we can aspire to kind of give them that same opportunity, that they can have that same kind of feeling that I'm seen, I have an opportunity to make mistakes and not get sucked into the system. And I love nothing more than when I had a police officer that was a person from a potentially a minority group, that was from the community, that was looking out for those kids that had maybe a shared experience with them. I mean, we talk a lot about representation. When people come into the room and they see people that look like them, or that have had a shared experience to them, I think they're more likely to believe that they're going to get a fair shake, that they're going to be treated fairly. And when I get an opportunity to have a conversation, maybe with the victim, the shopkeeper, as you said, that really wants the kids at their store. I mean, a lot of these people want the children at their store. They want them helping, or they want them hanging out there. But I think part of this is the young person understanding that had a negative impact on people, that it might have been exciting or maybe thrilling for me, or maybe something I wanted and I just wanted to take it, but the damage you did yourself by not earning it. And having that conversation is a lot more effective than arraigning somebody and having them be part of the system. So I thought a lot about it. I'm going to continue to think about it. I don't know if I have perfect solutions for it, but I think that the start of it is knowing that it's a thing, and that we can do better by everybody to be thoughtful about that situation and check ourselves constantly and be reflective. I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but it was a meaningful conversation that we had, and I've thought about it a lot since.
No, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness around how can we divert from, that first step towards creating the judicial involvement that can lead to the next steps that end up in district court or superior court and, jail or prison one day. Like, how do we divert towards another pathway that hopefully is putting the pathway to success instead of, So I appreciate that you're thoughtful about that. The last question I'm going to ask you is, it's a different kind of biased question, but I appreciate that you have the DCF background, but I'm curious what, if any, bias you think that will bring to the bench?
I've thought about that a lot, and I, not for lack of trying, I didn't ever become a defense attorney. There was a number of times, I've been to the CPCS Defense Counsel training. At one point I was going to be a bar advocate. At one point I was going to go work with children and family law. I was very close to doing that as well. It wasn't for lack of trying. I had a nice conversation with a good friend of mine, Chris Mahoney, on the phone this morning. He can't be here today, but we were talking about, and I had worked with Attorney Mahoney as a CPCS attorney, as a prosecutor. He was a defense attorney. I worked with him then as he was a defense counsel for care protection cases. And we had a really nice conversation about how we both felt like we were doing the same thing. And that it was meaningful that we could talk to each other honestly and openly and looking out for capital J justice and whatever that looked like. And so as much as I have a soft spot in my heart for DCF, I'm not going to say I don't. I met some wonderful people there. I believe there are wonderful people there. Part of me is going to tell you right now that I'm not unafraid to call them out on the carpet if they've done something inappropriate. DCF can be fantastic, but just like our police departments, they can be fantastic, but sometimes they're not. We want them to aspire to be helpful to our community, but if they're not, there has to be a balance, a check to that. And I am not afraid to call people out if I see something that's untoward or inappropriate or unjust. And just because your name happens to be on the defendant's side of the paper doesn't necessarily mean that you're wrong, or that you're bad, or that you're, don't deserve respect, or I never thought it was my job as a prosecutor to lock people up or do what the police told me to. It was my job to represent every member of the Commonwealth, even people that were defendants, to look out for them. So I don't see that much of a divide between being a DCF attorney and a defense attorney. I don't see that much of a divide between being a prosecutor and a defense attorney. Shouldn't we all be looking out for the right thing, the same thing? I mean, I've always felt that way, and I feel that way today. And so, well, I might have to check myself a little bit if I take the bench, because I do have some friends at DCF. I also have a lot of friends at the defense bar. We're lucky to have a great bar in Hampden County. People get along with each other, they'll hang out with each other, and I think it's best for the people we serve that there are honest, open, friendly collegial dialogue between both sides of the bar. It's a special thing about care and protections. It's a special thing about our area here, and I've been very thankful to grow up here.
Well, I appreciate your answers. I
Thank you.
appreciate the experience you bring to the bench, including, early, like being a server, like working at restaurants and bars. I think that's
Big deal, still the best training.
important experience to bring.
Yes.
So with that, I am going to extend my sincere thanks to UMass for hosting us here and making this happen. And my sincere thanks for everyone who came out, our chief legal and deputy legal counsel for driving out from the State House, and for my fellow counselors for coming out, and those who joined us online. But with that, I will adjourn this hearing.